It's a story of a persecuted people who finally got a chance, and wow, look what they did.
The numbers are not just extraordinary, they are bizarre. They make no sense at all.
Jews make up 21% of Ivy League students, 22% of Nobel Prize winners,
33% of Oscar-winning film directors, and 40% of the world's undisputed chess champions.
The statistical chances of that happening as a fluke have to be in the hundreds of billions to one.
If you look back over the last couple of centuries, some of the great innovative intelligences have been Jews, people who have changed the world and the way the world looks at things.
The curve of history was making Jewish people move in that direction, that you have to be smart because that's the only thing is yours. If you want to survive, it is probably your best chance.
They broke out of the Jewish tradition. Most of modern Jewish history is extremely reactionary and fixed.
I think Jewish accomplishment is the other side of the coin of why so many people historically have hated the Jews.
What you're doing in this documentary is daring, it's a little bit dangerous, but it's important because why? It's an absolutely bizarre phenomenon. Why the Jews?
Welcome to another edition of Confidently Speaking with DOC. I am your host, David Doc Shirey, author of the book, Rare Confidence, Strategies and Inspiration to Strengthen Your Belief that you can achieve anything. Episode number 15 on tap tonight, and we've got one of Pittsburgh's favorite rabbis in the house. We're talking what it's like to be Jewish in America. We're talking anti-Semitism. Most of all, we're talking optimism and the hope for a great future. Before I bring tonight's guest on board, I want to remind everybody that this show was designed to be participatory, which means please get involved. Let's see your comments, your questions. We'll try to get a bunch of those on the air tonight. And if you can share the video, a lot of you viewers out there have done a great job sharing the video, and that will allow the show to have a greater reach and allow me to attract great guests continually. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce tonight's guest.
Rabbi Charles Diamond was ordained by the Jewish Theological Seminary of America in 1985. Fast forward 20 years and Rabbi Chuck and a loyal group of followers founded Congregation Orla Simcha, which hit the ground running with a standing room only crowd for its very first high holiday service. In 2008, with over 200 families, Orla Simcha moved into the Tree of Life building, and after 2 years of sharing space, Rabbi Chuck became the senior rabbi of a merged Tree of Life Orla Simcha congregation. In July of 17, Rabbi Chuck began work on his new vision, Kahila Lala, an all-inclusive community engaging people in the joys of Judaism. The rabbi has spent parts of the past 45 summers at Camp Rama in Canada. In addition to his ordination, Rabbi Chuck earned a Master's of Public Management at the School of Urban and Public Affairs at CMU, as well as his BA in Social Relations. He is also trained in mediation and conflict resolution. Since the tragic shooting at the Tree of Life Synagogue, Rabbi Chuck has become an unofficial spokesperson for his beloved community. He has appeared on CNN, MSNBC, NBC, ABC, NPR, BBC, the CBC, Al Jazeera, and other stations around the world. I am pleased to welcome Rabbi Chuck to the program.
Hello, Rabbi Chuck.
That was great, Doc. That was a wonderful introduction of everybody. Man.
Yeah, well, listen, hey.
Who is this Rabbi Chuck? I want to meet him.
Rabbi Chuck, we have a lot of viewers that are not just in Pittsburgh. You are well known around these parts, but for folks across the country and even some around the world who may happen across this little show, I want everybody to know that Rabbi Chuck is larger than life, and I am thrilled to have you on the program, Rabbi. And before we get into some heavy stuff, and we got some heavy stuff to talk about, but before we do that, can you tell me what's going on here?
Wiz Khalifa, my good buddy Wiz Khalifa. It's funny, I put out after this picture, I put out that we were consulting on a joint enterprise, rap and Yiddish lullabies. What's going on there was the wedding of, at the time, his agent, Benji Grinberg.
Yeah.
So at the time, they were together, and I was the rabbi at the wedding, and I had a chance to meet Wiz and get to know him. And that week, I went into the bank, and the teller says to me, a young lady, "Wait a minute, you're the rabbi who's going on tour with Wiz Khalifa."
I mean, listen, Wiz Khalifa and Rabbi Chuck together in one picture, two of Pittsburgh's favorite sons. I didn't even know the city was big enough for the both of you. Okay, all right. On the much more serious issues, Rabbi, I hate to revisit that fateful day in October of 2018, but I think for the sake of this conversation, we have to. Let's take a look.
And in this Squirrel Hill neighborhood, a largely Jewish neighborhood, you can imagine they are devastated here tonight, and the entire city of Pittsburgh is in mourning.
Every available unit in the city needs to get here now.
Shots rang out just before 10 a.m.
We're under fire. We're under fire.
The chaos unfolding at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. The community ordered to shelter in place.
Do not come out of your home right now. It is not safe.
As many as 100 people were inside. Members had gathered for the Saturday service and a baby naming ceremony.
We are pinned down by gunfire. He's firing out of the front of the building with an automatic weapon.
Dozens of local and state police, along with SWAT teams, rushed to the scene. The shooter was leaving the synagogue when confronted by police. He then barricaded himself inside, armed with an assault rifle and handguns.
Be advised, we have a suspect negotiating surrender at this time.
He surrendered an hour later. Veteran law enforcement officers shaken by what they found afterwards.
It's a very horrific crime scene. It's one of the worst that I've seen. It's very bad.
Loved ones in disbelief, a city in shock.
It's just a really surreal experience, right? When something that we know takes place in other places that's so random strikes so close to home, it's just horrific.
11 dead, 6 injured, including 4 police officers. Authorities are identifying the shooter as 46-year-old Rob Bowers and say this was a hate crime.
Members of the Tree of Life Synagogue, conducting a peaceful service in their place of worship, were brutally murdered by a gunman targeting them simply because of their faith.
Bauer's social media rife with anti-Semitic messages.
This is our community, whether you're Jewish or not, and, we're all here, and hopefully there's ways we can find to support each other through this.
The FBI now investigating his background and what led Bowers to attack this synagogue. Ron Mott, NBC News, Pittsburgh.
Now, Rabbi, just for a point of reference to our viewers that may not know, you were no longer the rabbi at Tree of Life on that fateful day, correct?
Yeah. I was no longer the rabbi. I was a rabbi up until the year before. And I don't speak for the synagogue at all. As I said, I'm, as you mentioned, sort of an unofficial spokesperson I became after that. I assume because of my relationship to the victims and to the synagogue and to the community and my availability as well. Okay, good.
On that morning, Rabbi, when the news started to break as to what was happening, what was your gut feeling telling you?
Well, I was home. It was Saturday, Shabbos morning. I was home, and I get a phone call. And I usually don't answer the phone on the Sabbath, but it was from a congregant of mine. Bert, you know Bert?
Bert, I don't know if I know Bert.
Bert from Bert's Auto Parts. I give him a little plug.
I know Bert.
You know Bert. Of course you know Bert.
Yeah.
Well, Bert calls me and says, "Rabbi, did you hear what's going on at the tree?" And I said, "No." He said, "There's a shooting. 4 people are dead." This was like 10 o'clock. Yeah. So the shooter had walked, I think the timeline was that he walked in at 10 to 10. And by 10 o'clock, he was finished. He was on his way out. So my immediate thoughts were, is this true? And I turned on the TV and I see the reporting. And I know that some of it, they're having a baby. They didn't have a baby naming. There weren't like a ton of people there. But I immediately wanted to do something. So I put on my coat and hat. It was rainy and cold. And I ran towards the synagogue. And what I was hoping to do was just to be able to comfort people. And I got to the corner of Northumberland and Murray, about 2 blocks from the synagogue, and couldn't go any farther. And that's where I spent the next couple hours. I was there for that press conference with Governor Wolf. And so my first thoughts were, you want to help in some way, and how horrible it is. And it became obvious when you didn't hear about somebody that they had been killed.
You know, Rabbi, when I prepare for these shows, I do a couple dry runs in my head. And I'm new to this broadcast stuff. This is only the 15th show I've done. Every time I've prepared for this show and I've tried to go through a couple of the questions I want to ask you, I get a little choked up.
Yeah.
And I remember saying this to my wife. Now, one of the loves of my life is the city of Pittsburgh. I'm a child of the city of Pittsburgh. And I said to my wife at the time, I said, if there is a community in America that is strong enough to overcome this hatred and bounce back stronger than ever, it's Pittsburgh, and it's more specifically Squirrel Hill. And, you know, the national media stuck around for 8 to 10 days. Then they moved on to the next big story, and, you know, we're all still here to pick up the pieces.
Right.
In your opinion, how was our response as a community to this tragedy?
Oh, just like you said, Doc, the community, as you know, is just wonderful in so many different ways. So not only was everyone there, everyone, all aspects of the community, the Islamic community raised a couple $100,000 for the Jewish community. Everywhere, because I was on so many different interviews, people would see me on the streets and come up, Rabbi, you know, and give me a hug. Back in the days when we could give hugs, they would give me a hug, and they would, you know, some non-Jewish, they were kissing my hand. Rabbi, thank you. I mean, it was so moving. I couldn't buy a lunch a week after the shooting. Everywhere I went, you know, I tried to get it for 2 weeks, Doc, but it didn't work. But you know, people were so gracious, and even around the world, my pulpit grew beyond Pittsburgh, I guess thanks to Facebook mainly. And I grew a following from different parts of the world. And when I began to speak about standing up to hate, and I would go to other communities, those people also were so welcoming and so caring. But Pittsburgh stood out as it stands out, I think, to this day. And how
you mentioned something, and it was heartwarming for me to see that the entire world, the country, especially the entirety of the city of Pittsburgh, just wrapped their collective arms around Squirrel Hill and our Jewish community while we mourned. And one specific act of love and kindness that struck me the most was Wazi Muhammad and the Muslim community's offer to literally act as human shields to protect our synagogues in the aftermath of the shooting. And even when I think about it to this day, it warms my heart and puts a smile on my face.
As the Jewish community did for them,
Absolutely.
You know, when there was a shooting involving them.
Absolutely. All right. Yeah. So in the immediate aftermath of the shooting, a few days later, President Trump visited Tree of Life. Rabbi Myers welcomed him with open arms. And there was a huge political debate here in the city of Pittsburgh, which included large protests. And I wanted to get your take on President Trump's visit to Tree of Life and the Squirrel Hill right after the shooting.
Yeah, well, it was interesting because in one of the interviews they asked me about it, and it was right before he was coming. And I was in the camp that felt he should wait a week. Not that he shouldn't come, but that let the funerals take place, let the families sort of go through that week. And when the president comes in, no matter who the president is, it's disruptive in so many different ways. And I know there was a protest, a peaceful protest. My wife was involved in that protest. And then I would see headlines on the internet, former rabbi tells Trump to stay away. You know, I think, though, after the fact, he came, he really didn't say much. He behaved presidential. And it was, I thought, turned out okay. And I tell you, I respect Rabbi Myers for how he handled it.
Now, back to, we talked a little bit about the Muslim community, but, Pittsburgh seems to me, from a pastoral, rabbinical, imam type of situation, from an interfaith situation, seems like we have a pretty strong interfaith relationship here in the city. Has that been your experience, Rabbi?
It is my experience, although it wasn't necessarily something I was that much involved with, but rabbis like Rabbi Gibson from Temple Sinai, maybe Rabbi Bisno, very much involved in interfaith, Rabbi Gibson especially. And also within the Jewish community. I always felt that the rabbis within the Jewish community, even though we're from the same faith, sometimes it's, where we have different beliefs. I always felt that the rabbis, for the most part, got along. When I started Or L'Simcha, a lot of the Orthodox rabbis, they didn't agree with, maybe how I conducted my rabbinate, but I felt that I had the respect in terms of what I was doing.
Yeah. All right, Rabbi, I want to shift gears here for a minute, and I want to talk about, Jews are referred to as God's chosen people. And I've got 3 related questions for you about this. The first one is, what is the origin of the Jews being God's chosen people? The second one is, what does it actually mean to be God's chosen people? And the third one is, do you feel that this is the source of much of the anti-Semitism that Jews have faced throughout world history?
Okay, start off with some easy questions here, huh?
Yeah.
I think the source goes back to when God was giving the Torah. This is what we read in our Bible. And that he would ask people, would you like the Torah? What do you offer as a guarantee? And the Jewish people offered their children as a guarantee. And that's why we were deserving of the Torah. So we were chosen to receive the gift of the Torah and everything that is in it. Repeat the second part of the question for me.
What does it actually mean to be God's chosen people?
Well, again, that we benefit from having the gift of the Torah. And again, life as a Jew hasn't always been easy. And we've been the target of anti-Semitic acts forever. And, we've been kicked out of countries, and we haven't had an easy existence. But we're chosen by God to live the life that is outlined for us. And there are a lot of gifts in that. So in that respect, that's how we're chosen. I don't think it necessarily makes us better than anybody else. It only makes us better, and that the gifts that we were given to by God. But I don't feel like I'm better than,
right.
anyone else.
Now, do you feel that maybe when other people hear that's a source of some of the anti-Semitism that our people have faced for thousands of years?
It could be the source of some. Look, when people say, "Well, we're the chosen people," it sounds like how arrogant are they?
Right.
They're chosen for what? What makes them chosen?
Right.
But I think this, obviously, with the discussion of anti-Semitism, there's so much that goes into that, Doc. That will be another visit, perhaps.
Well, that's actually my next question. I wanted to touch on it a little bit. And the question is really, why do so many people hate the Jews? What? I mean, what are some reasons why people? Because I think we're a fun-loving group of people that, for the most part, we love everybody, right?
Hey! I don't know. Maybe it's because of our success. Maybe because we have different throughout time. We would have different dietary laws. Maybe we dress differently. We're just different, and people sometimes get scared when people are different. They get scared of you, whether you're a different color or have different practices or different religion. And I think people don't understand it a lot. And plus we've had, as your intro mentioned, a lot of successes compared to our numbers. So I think you put all of this together, and it leads to people finding excuses to hate the Jews.
We're actually going to get into some of those successes here in a little bit. Let me ask you this. Do you think that we as Jews have a responsibility to try to change people's opinions? I mean, Jewish people have for thousands of years faced this anti-Semitism. Should we try to change their opinion, or should we be of the mindset, if they don't like us for who we are, that's their problem?
No, I think we have to be proactive. I was involved before the pandemic struck and the schools closed. I had started to lecture or interact with high school students in the Pittsburgh area. And for a lot of them, I spoke to like over 1,000 kids. Not many were Jewish, and not many had met a rabbi.
Yeah.
So here they could hear me and say, well, here, this guy's like a cool guy. And I thought that they listened to what I had to say, and I listened to what they had to say. And I think there was some respect. I think we have to create a dialogue, because the more we talk together, the more we learn about each other, and the more we can respect each other.
I agree. We have a question from a viewer, Rabbi, and Pam Cooper Shepherd wants to know if you think services should continue remotely or be held in person right now.
Hi, Pam. How you doing? I think that right now it's got to be remotely. And it's not the same as being in person. There's no question about it. And I think ultimately that's what we want to return to. But when I had to decide, and my people had to decide about the high holidays, it was clear that it's just not safe yet to do it together. And I'm not willing to take that chance for me or for my elder congregants or for anybody. So I'm working on putting together it's not going to really, in my case, be a service, but some kind of interactive high holiday experience for people who want to join me. And I'll talk about that later.
All right.
Hi, Taper.
All right. I want to talk about some of the social unrest that's happening in the country right now. Black Lives Matter. I think we can all agree Black Lives Matter, and we need to do more and better in this country when it comes to racial equality for all, 100%. I want to for a minute separate the words Black Lives Matter from the actual organization. There's a lot of people that feel like the organization, and it says it right there on their website, on their platform, that they support the BDS, the Boycott, Divest, and Sanction Israel movement, and there are people who believe that to be anti-Semitic. So I wanted to get your take on all of that, Rabbi.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I want to use an example. I was asked to speak at a rally in Washington on gun control, which I feel very strongly about, especially after the shooting at the tree. And the Reverend from Chicago was an activist who asked me to participate. And I did some research and found that he was a buddy of Farrakhan, and that he allowed Farrakhan to speak in his church, and really didn't. And Farrakhan, in saying that he wasn't anti-Semitic, just proved again that he was anti-Semitic in the language that he used. And at the time, I didn't feel like I could appear with this priest at this rally. However, and I think that BDS is anti-Semitic in many different ways, but the Black Lives Matter movement is much bigger than that. And I am, as we talked about before, I'm 100% behind those protests that are going on now, and that it's about time. It's about time. And hopefully we'll continue on this path. Unlike gun control, which after the shooting, everybody talks about, we'll have to do gun control, and then nothing happens in the long term. So I'm not happy with the platform and that it's in there, but I think it's the movement is much bigger than that.
There have been a number of Jewish-owned businesses that have been destroyed, and here's a shot of 3 different synagogues that have been defaced over the last couple months, with graffiti of Free Palestine and Free Gaza, and even today with everything that's happening from the virus to the unrest, and you're talking about gun control, while there's been record gun sales because people see some lawlessness, and we're really living in crazy times, Rabbi.
I tell you, Doc, it's very crazy and scary in some ways too. I see the use of these federal agents in Portland as an example, something that really scares me. And that's why it's important to speak out, and why it's important to protest and not let these issues just go by the wayside.
Rabbi, I travel a lot for business, and I have friends from all walks of life, and there are people that, don't even know that I'm Jewish, and I run into them. And there are times where I'll be in somebody's company and the name of a famous person will come up, and somebody will hear that they were Jewish, and they'll say, I didn't know they were Jewish. So I thought I'd play a little clip of a couple famous people in history that some of our viewers may not have known was Jewish. Let's take a look.
Okay.
And Rabbi, listen, as a Jew, I love me a good Christmas carol. And I think people would be surprised to know of the Jews that wrote and composed some of these songs. Now, the list of actors, actresses, entertainers is just as long. You know, Rabbi, when you look at the numbers, as I showed in my opening piece, Jews make up about 1% of the world's population, about 2% of the American population, yet they account for 23% of all the Nobel Prize winners in history, 21% of Ivy League students, over half of the actual Ivy League presidents, over half of the nonfiction Pulitzer Prize winners, 37% of Academy Award-winning directors. And I guess my question to you, Rabbi, is what is it about the Jewish people that makes our people such high achievers?
First of all, I want to say you should send that little clip to Adam Sandler. He'll have enough material for a new Hanukkah song for the next few years. And my mother would be smiling right now at your list of statistics because she always used to quote them to me. I'm very proud of our heritage, and I think that Jews are just motivated people, and maybe because of where we came from and our struggles, that our parents always tried to do better for the next generation, as we try to do better for our kids. And so the next generation was sort of geared towards a high achievement. And so I'm proud of it, very proud. And we're supposed to be a light to the other nations. So we set the example. People should look and say, hey, we can do this too.
I love that. I love that. All right. I want to shift gears here, Rabbi. Okay. As I mentioned, you know, as all of us, I've got friends from all walks of life. And you know, I was in a fraternity, Sigma Chi, at Ohio University that I'm very proud of. Our pledge pin and our actual sign was a cross. And I remember when I came home during pledging in the mid-'80s, and I had we were required to wear the pledge pin. I came home and I had the pledge pin on my sweater, and my dad asked me if I was switching teams. But you know, I have some friends who are a different faith, and I can remember at one point in time we were out having a few libations at our local establishment, and we were joking around. May have been a couple drinks in, and I asked them. I said, "Am I going to hell?" And they said, "Absolutely." And I had Father Terry O'Connor on the show a couple weeks ago. You know Father Terry, don't you?
I do. Good guy.
Great guy, Father Terry. And I asked Father Terry that question. I want to show you that quick clip. Question to you, Father Terry. Am I going to hell?
Let's hope not.
And I appreciate Father Terry's response to that. I guess my question to you, Rabbi, is as Jews, what do we believe in terms of heaven and hell, and what happens to us when we die?
Oh man. Well, I don't think we really believe in a heaven. We believe in a world to come in some ways. And the traditional picture of the world to come was you had a chance to study with your rabbi. You know, I always liked Rabbi Wasserman from Shara Torah when we were on a panel for the high school, the Hebrew high school, and somebody asked him about that. He said, it's like heaven and hell, it's the same thing, but you study. So if you like to study, it's like heaven. If you don't like to study, it's like hell. I always like that explanation. I don't know. I tend to think that our soul, our nefesh, that which makes us who we are, when we die, that leaves our body. And I've been around people who've had their last breath, and I really have experienced that. Now, where it goes, I can't tell you, but I really feel like that. So what we bury is the shell of the person. And so, I mean, that's the best I can tell you at the moment. I can't say I look forward to experiencing it for myself, but our day will come. Other is, you know, as they say, life's a bitch and then you die.
Yeah.
So make the most out of your life now. That's my advice to people.
All right. So I'm not letting you off the hook that easy about it.
Okay.
So I got two follow-ups for you about that. The first one is, are we going to experience our loved ones after we die? You always hear say, I'll see you on the other side, or I can't wait to see my loved ones again, my mom, my dad. Will we experience them in some way, shape, or form?
Well, I don't know how to answer that. I would answer that by we can experience our loved ones after they die. That we who are still living can experience. I feel, my mother's with me, my father's with me. My mother passed away about 1.5 years ago, and it was very difficult following the shooting as well. But I feel that there are times when she's with me. I can feel it, or she appears to me in a dream. So I would just turn that around and say, we can do that. Now, after people die, are they together again? I look forward to finding out at some point way in the future, Doc, but I'm not going to give you an answer that I'm making up on the spot.
Hey, listen, you're the only rabbi I have on the show right now, so if I don't ask you these questions, I got to ask,
That's right.
Right. All right. So
you can ask me I said you could ask me anything, and I'll answer it to the best of my ability.
All right. So my next question for you, Rabbi, is, and as you know about me, I'm not the most religious guy in the world. I'm much more culturally Jewish than I am religiously Jewish. One of the things that I've observed is that in Judaism, it seems to me that the teachings of Judaism focus more on the life that we're living now, while some other religions, their teaching focus more on the afterlife. Right. Is that a fair assumption?
Well, I mean, you can just take the answers I just gave you to your questions, because that's exactly what I was doing, focusing more on your life now than the afterlife.
Yep.
So, yes, but there are stories of, again, Olam Haba and people coming back in a dream and things like that. So it's there. But I think our focus, I know my focus is on our life now and making the most of it now. We'll worry about what comes next later. Why worry about it now?
So I'm not going to worry about it now. All I'm worried about is getting some good answers out of Rabbi Chuck.
Get through this next half hour. All right.
All right. So, Rabbi, a couple of weeks ago, I had on Jonathan Tobin on the program. And he's a pretty well-known guy. And, the whole show was about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And that whole conflict absolutely fascinates me. It really does. Everything from what happened from the creation of the state of Israel in 1948, of course, the thousands of years leading up to that, and just everything to modern day, the thoughts of American Jews, where you have a lot of American Jews that, of course, are in 1,000% support of Israel. And then you have a number of American Jews that feel like Israel should be held to a standard higher than almost any other country in the world, and to a degree that they are. But I asked Jonathan Tobin if he felt like the Palestinians really wanted peace. I want to show you his answer and get your take on it.
And you could have said before that happened, well, why doesn't Israel take risks for peace? That's a phrase that President Obama used to use a lot. Why doesn't Israel have the courage to take the risks for peace? But the point is, for the last 27 years, that's actually what Israel did. And when most Israelis hear those kinds of critiques, their reaction is, where have you been for the last generation? You can argue, you can't argue religion. You can't argue, basic philosophy, but you have to live with the facts. The facts of really this last generation is that the Palestinians were repeatedly offered a chance for peace, a chance for the Palestinian state that we've been told is the sum of their desires, that they want to live in peace alongside Israel. And the truth is, they have rejected every offer of peace, including that of a Palestinian state. Israel, not just one offer that Dennis alluded to in his video.
Your thoughts, Rabbi?
Well, I kind of agree with it in a lot of ways, and things that I've learned on several of my missions to Israel, where the Palestinian leadership just was not able to take back to their people an agreement where they didn't get everything that they wanted for a variety of reasons. So I would agree with that. But I also think that it takes some really brave leaders to make peace. Sadat, I mean, he really ended up being killed because of it, but he coming to Jerusalem. I remember the story of Yitzhak Rabin and the king of Jordan, who were negotiating for peace, and they went into a room, and Rabin turned to the guy and says, "Don't disturb us till we're finished." And they went into the room. "We're not coming out till we have an agreement."
Yeah.
And they came to an agreement. And what were the details? He says the details will work themselves out. But those were two brave leaders who, and I think that's what it takes, extraordinary leaders. It's such a difficult situation, Doc, and I don't see that there will be peace in my lifetime.
All right, Rabbi. Tonight on the show, I am introducing a new segment that I'm going to use moving forward here, and you're going to be the first test case.
Okay.
And we're going to call it Quarantine Quick Takes.
Okay.
And here's what this is going to be, Rabbi. I am going to ask you impossibly complex questions that I'm looking for very short and simple answers to, not to put you on the spot or anything like that.
Okay,
right?
bring on.
All right. First one. What does it mean to be Jewish in America today?
You want short answers, huh?
Short and sweet.
It means having an identity, carrying on our religion and our culture, and making sure we go to the future.
All right, great. All right. How do we, as American Jews, balance our concern for Israel and the Jewish community with our concern for the wider world?
Israel, number one for us, but at the same time, as you said, how do we balance it? Well, we balance it because there are things that are right and there are things that are wrong. And if Israel does stuff that's wrong, we have to speak out about it. But we have to be supportive because it's our homeland. So we have to walk that line, a tightrope, but we can do it.
Rabbi, I am married to an Italian Catholic girl. That is not a picture of us. But I will say that the family that I am married into is a wonderful, loving family, just salt of the earth type of people, to use a phrase. And my question is, we were not married, Lisa and I were not married in a church or a synagogue. What are your thoughts on interfaith marriage?
Oh, okay. Well, I've come a long way in my old age. And a few years ago, I on Yom Kippur announced that I would be working with interfaith couples. And I have started to officiate under certain conditions, interfaith couples, and I would do it in the synagogue. I'm really looking to use the word save is the wrong word, but that their next generation will continue to be Jewish. And that, so I'll officiate. I'm the only officiant. They're promising me to have a Jewish home. We study what that means, and that they'll raise their kids Jewish.
All right. So there are conditions, right? Because I remember when Lisa and I got married, we ran into a number of similar type issues, and we ended up getting married in a ballroom of a hotel.
I always felt that the conservative movement, like, oh, we welcome you into our congregation, and then the day of the marriage, well, we can't be involved in this special day of your life. And then afterwards, oh, come on back. And I didn't think that was meeting the challenge. I was on a trip I won't go into the details. I was in Ukraine and Babi Yar, where there was a great massacre, and I just had a revelation, and I really wanted to do something to maintain contact. There's so many interfaith couples, and I have to say I haven't done a ton, but I'm very satisfied with the ones I've been involved with.
Now, I know, as a follow-up to that, I know that there has always been a concern amongst, the Jewish movement in America. Like I said, we only make up 2% of the population, and the more and more over the years that Jews intermarry, it would just that 2% would continue to dilute itself. Is that a concern?
Yeah, well, again, in terms of the next generation, that we're, so many people, a big percentage of the congregations. I mean, Tree of Life, they were dancing in the aisles when I announced this.
Yeah,
because it touched so many lives. So there's a Talmudic principle that if you ask something lechatchila at the beginning, your answer might be one thing, but diavad at the end, it might be a different answer. So by the time people are coming to get married to me, they're going to get married. So if they meet these conditions, I'm willing to be their rabbi. And in most cases, I have become the rabbi of both the Jewish and the non-Jewish part of the couple.
Rabbi, if you could have dinner with any person in world history, who would it be and what would you want to talk to them about?
Probably be a disappointing answer for you, but I'd have to say my mother's father, Max Spodak, who I didn't have the opportunity to know. He was a guy, he was 5 foot, like 8. People wonder like how I'm so tall. My mother used to go crazy because I'm so tall. But I was always curious. He was a very religious man, and his family died in the Holocaust. And I was always curious to meet with him. And I've thought about this question. Now, if you're asking about somebody who, boy, historical figure, oh boy, I'd have to think about that a little more.
All right. You know what? Maybe we'll come back to that after this question because I want to get your answer to that. I'm really curious.
Okay.
All right. Rabbi, what do you think Judaism in America will look like 100 years from now?
I think it will look in some ways similar. I think the Orthodox communities, the Lubavitch, Hasidic, will be very similar to what they are now. I could see the Reform and conservative movements sort of being a new movement, one movement, maybe a humanistic type of movement, even though I know that exists now. And hopefully we won't be, I don't think we should be assimilated totally into the rest of the country. So I'm hoping it won't be that much different. But I always hope people become more observant. Although I have to say, in my old age, I'm becoming less observant and more spiritual, perhaps. I hope there's more tolerance to all religions.
Rabbi, there's a woman who has a question for you, and this woman has one of my most faithful viewers. I mean, she watches every show, and well, I'd love to meet her one of these days. And Lisa Bruni-Shirey, who happens to be my wife, she wants to know, how do we keep the faith in the midst of tragedy and hate?
Hi, Lisa. How you doing? Your husband's doing a great job. Okay, so you must do a good job taking care of him and inspiring him.
She does.
You know, it's a great question. Faith. There's like a difference between hope and faith. Like when you're in a tunnel that's dark and you're looking for the light at the end of the tunnel. Hope is like you keep moving, just you're hoping that there's a light. Faith is knowing that there's a light at the end of the tunnel and that it is positive. So that's what we need to keep within difficult times. We will get to the point of realizing our faith that there is good. I believe there is good out there. There's no question about it, but that good will overcome all the other things that we're doing. And so we must keep our faith. And that's what gives us also hope. So they're intertwined together. So Lisa, good question, but let's keep our faith. We can't give up. And look to other people who are doing such great things.
She asks me those kind of questions every night, and I'm just at a loss. So.
Yeah, I'll ask Rabbi Chuck, he said.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to come back to this, Rabbi, give you a chance to think about it. One person in world history, what do you think?
I don't know. How about Roberto Clemente?
All right. Well, that actually leads me into my next question, Rabbi Chuck, because in about 70% of the pictures, when you're not in shul, you have your bucko hat on.
Yeah, as I do here.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about your love of the Pirates, how far it goes back, and what do you feel the state of the organization is right now?
I tell you, what a good segue. My answer. How'd you know I was going to answer Roberto Clemente? Roberto Clemente was my hero, I have to tell you, and I was devastated when he passed away. But he passed away doing wonderful things for humanity. My love for the Pirates goes back to when I was a kid. And I can remember hearing about Mazeroski's home run in 1960. I was about 5 years old. I bleed black and gold. And they say I'm a man of faith. I always say, if I can't have hope for the Pirates, who can?
Right.
We haven't lost a game. Season starts Friday night. You know, we're going to win this year.
Yeah.
I think that's hope more than faith.
That's definitely hope. I don't think that's based on any facts, right?
No facts whatsoever. And I think the state of the organization is, look, First of all, baseball is in trouble. But the advantage the Pirates have now, David, is I'm sure you've heard this one, is that they're used to playing in front of empty stadiums.
Right.
So they'll have an advantage. We have an owner who's a businessman. He wants to make money. He's a good businessman. Is he a good owner? I don't know that he's a good owner. He's a nice guy. I've met him. But I think they could improve the organization. They have a new general manager, a new manager. I'll give them a shot.
Hey, in a 60-game season, right, where the last couple of years they've fallen apart after the All-Star break, and just tonight they announced before the first pitch of the first game that they're going to expand the playoffs to 16 teams, so maybe they will catch lightning in a bottle. Who knows, right?
I'll wear my hat regardless. I have a Penguin hat and a Steeler hat too, so they might get some use. But I've always been known for wearing my hat, and it sort of also is a symbolic, in a way, to me, of being Rabbi Chuck as opposed to Rabbi Charles. Right. That I can wear a suit if I have to, but I also can wear my tennis shoes and the sweatshirt and my pirate hat.
And I love the fact, Rabbi Chuck, that in the wake of the Tree of Life tragedy, as you were showing up on places like CNN with world-famous anchors, there you are with your pirate hat on, and I just thought that was awesome.
People all over the country responded to me and said, it was such comfort. Old campers of mine, old students, it was such comfort to see you with your pirate hat on. So
it's awesome.
Here I am.
Rabbi, you have been a terrific guest. I appreciate your honesty and the fact that you gave it to us straight. I asked you some very difficult questions. You didn't avoid any of them. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about your current endeavor, Kahila Lala?
Kahila Lala, good.
There we go.
Well, after I left Tree of Life, I wanted to continue. I would say I'm sort of semi-retired, but I started a Kahila Lala. See, I messed it up myself. Kahila Lala.
Kahila Lala.
And it basically is for people who don't want to belong to a synagogue. They're not looking for your parents' service. Basically, we have high holiday service, which is like an hour and a half, 2 hours long. But this year it'll be different. So if people want to see a streamed high holiday service, go somewhere else. But if you want to participate in a unique creative experience, maybe come to me. It's inclusive. I'd say I have about 75 members and support from a lot of different people. We also sponsor, there's a Facebook group called Rabbi Chuck's Minion of Superheroes. Minion is a quorum of 10 people. And if you want to go check it out, because it's just good stories. Good stories for your wife. Tell your wife to check it out, and she won't lose faith in mankind. In addition, we have a fund, a superhero fund, which we use to help people out. And again, it's small stuff, but it's, helping people feed some people, providing foods for shelters, helping people on the street, that kind of stuff. And then I teach. I have some students that I teach, some adults, and some bar mitzvah kids as well.
Seems to me like it's the perfect entity for the times that we live in. How can our viewers find you online?
Well, I think if you go to ravchuck.com, you'll find the link to the Kehilalala.
Rav Chuck, like R-A-V Chuck.
Right, ravchuck.com. And if you go to my Facebook page, just search Rabbi Chuck, and that'll tell you a lot too.
Rabbi Chuck, again, I can't thank you enough. I look forward to running into you up street when you get back to town and we're allowed to actually be near other human beings. And if not, we'll give each other the elbow bump instead of...
I got a hug for you. I'm a big hugger. I'm known for my hugs. This is killing me. Me.
All right.
I'll take you out to Chamsa or something for a nice kosher meal.
Absolutely. Rabbi Chuck, I'm going to put you in the virtual green room for a minute. Hang on as I say goodbye to my audience.
Okay. Bye, audience.
Rabbi Chuck was awesome. I want to talk about next week real quick. Next Tuesday night, we have got Pittsburgh super lawyer William Kai, Billy Kai, Bill Kai, whatever you want to call him. And Bill is real involved in justice reform. We're going to talk a lot about that and about a lot of issues of the day as it relates to the legal profession. And next Thursday night, now this is not 100% locked down yet. You know, in this business that I'm new to, we have a fluid situation, but I am close to securing cyber dating expert extraordinaire Jolie Spira to come on the show, and I hope we can secure that. I will let you know via my Facebook page early in the week whether we can do that or not. As always, listen, you guys have been an awesome audience. The amount of engagement we had tonight, back and forth, was terrific. I appreciate you sharing the video tonight, and we will see you next week. Have a great weekend. Peace.